Welcome to the Well Off Podcast, where the goal is to motivate, inspire, and share success principles. I'm here with Luc Boiron. So thank you for joining me. And,
thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. And I think we'll just start off the usual way. So if you want to tell us a bit about your life story before real estate, so we can find out a bit more about you.
Okay, well, real estate's always been a part of my life.
Okay.
I grew up in a real estate family, so
Yes.
big family. My parents had 6 children. My father was a commercial real estate agent and commercial real estate investor.
Mhm.
So he did that for over 50 years in the Toronto area. And so I grew up, learning about mortgages at the dinner table. It was a big part of my life, and I always wanted to get into real estate in some way. I really tried to buy my first property when I was 15. It didn't work out, but
Cool.
I ended up buying my first property when I was 18.
Yeah. It's funny. I just said no real estate. We jumped right in, which is fine. I'm just messing with you. But yeah,
So
go
I
ahead.
guess outside of real estate then, even though I was doing real estate this whole time, I spent I spent 8 years in university. I did my undergrad in business. I did my MBA joint with a law degree.
Yeah.
And then I articled. So I actually took a 9th year to, kind of intern at a law firm before I got called to the bar.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting, because I know we were talking about this a little bit before, but you don't see a lot of lawyers leaving their profession, which they've put so much into, and then going into something crazy like flipping and wholesaling and doing all that. Why did you decide to do that? Is it because of your dad and seeing the success that he had?
Yeah, I think my dad pushed me a lot into being an entrepreneur. He did push me to go to university, get an education, even though he wasn't university educated himself. But I think I didn't enjoy how theoretical so much in law was. And I was a very practical, kind of hands-on person. And then on top of that, I realized a lot of the best investors that you see, a lot of the great ones you hear about that are, developing cool projects and they're doing beautiful custom homes, many of them started doing a flip here and there, but very few of the good investors stay in the space. So I kind of always thought, once I realized flipping was possible in the GTA, because I didn't think it was at first, I realized very few people are sophisticated and doing this consistently. So rather than doing one flip, saying, okay, now let me go and do a house build, I said, why don't I create a business around flipping volumes of houses and be the best at it if possible?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, you're obviously doing a good job. You've told me that you've worked on over 30 this year, or over 20?
I think I've done 20 or 21 I've
20
bought
or 21.
so far this year.
That's awesome. We'll talk about that a bit later. Can you tell us where you grew up?
I grew up in Thornhill.
Mm-hmm.
Went to a French school downtown Toronto, public high school down in Thornhill, and I stuck around. I mean, other than after high school, I spent 2 years teaching English in China. After that, I came back and went to undergrad, law school, MBA, all at York University. So I kind of stayed in the Toronto area.
Cool. Do your parents speak French?
Yes, I grew up in a French-speaking household.
Both your parents?
Yes, both
Okay.
my parents immigrated from France.
Oh, really? From France?
Yeah.
Okay. Usually, because I went to a French school as well.
Okay.
I never told you that. Which school did you go to?
I went to the Lycée Français de Toronto.
Oh, okay. Got it. Yeah. Was that a high school?
It actually went all the way from, kindergarten through grade 12.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember ever facing that school in any sports or anything, but that's good to know.
We had about 20 students per year.
Really?
And we didn't really have any sports teams. So
Yeah, and it's a long way to go from Thornhill, isn't it?
it was probably an hour, by TTC
Yeah.
as a kid.
Yeah.
yeah.
Interesting. Good choice for you, I guess. It worked out.
Yeah, my parents wanted me to have like a French-speaking education. Though I did go join the English standard public school system in grade 10.
Mm-hmm.
I went to Thornley Secondary in Thornhill. So
Okay, good to know. Yeah, so back to the real estate portion now. You end up leaving, or you finish your law degree. You did your articling for 2 years, you said?
1 year.
For 1 year?
Yes.
Okay, and then during that time period, you were starting to work on some real estate yourself. Can you tell us about what happened there?
Yeah. So starting from the beginning, when I was 18, I bought my first property. It was actually a rooming house at Jane and Finch. I held that for 4 years, managed that, did renovations on it myself, learned to work with my hands, learned about construction, learned, that I'm way too nice to tenants because I didn't have exactly the greatest tenants you can imagine.
Yeah.
But then I sold that first year law school, actually. I bought another property closer to York University, student rental, bought another one with my good friend. And then with 2 friends, I bought a property up in Aurelia, a bungalow, converted that to a legal duplex. And I was always looking for more opportunities, but I was always limited being a student in not being able to finance more purchases. So that was an issue. And then when I finished law school, I started articling. I was actually going to move down to California because I thought you couldn't flip in Canada. I thought price points are too high. Everyone sells through a realtor. There's no way to buy a discounted property. So I was convinced I was going to move to California, and I ended up not, in part for my now wife. I stuck around.
Yeah.
So it was worth it.
Yeah, for sure.
And I ended up articling here. And I said, I'm going to article here. I'm going to try to flip. And if I'm able to, I'll stick around. If I'm not, we're going to move down to California, because she was also articling at the same time.
Okay.
And I did 2 flips during my articling, and I made way more on those than I did articling. And so as soon as I got called to the bar, I kind of quit law and said I'm doing real estate full time. Cool.
How did your family react to that? And your girlfriend or now wife?
Yeah. Supportive for sure. I think they could all see I'm way more passionate about real estate, way more focused at it, and I'm good at it. So I don't think anyone was overly worried about me doing that.
Yeah. They all believed in you. They thought that if you do this, you're going to be okay.
Yeah. And I'd been doing it, like I said, with the rentals at that point, for 9 years, probably. 8. Yeah. Something like that. So I think I kind of had shown that I was doing well enough in real estate, and real estate actually allowed me to graduate law school with positive net worth rather than, negative because of the debt. I had student loan debt that I was able to refinance out of one of my rentals, pay off my student loan debt. And actually then I was able to use that line of credit to purchase flips.
That's awesome. Did you ever have a normal job?
I grew up having jobs. I worked at a butcher shop. I mowed the lawn at a cemetery. I was always, shoveling snow on winters and things like that. Taught English in China.
Which isn't really a normal job. Most people don't teach English in China, Canadians at least.
So I guess not completely normal.
Or mowing the lawn of a cemetery.
Yeah.
Doesn't really count as normal, I'd say.
I guess so. For me, it was more normal than working for myself. The most normal would be where I articled. I articled at the Canadian Investor Protection Fund. So it was kind of securities related law. And I would say that was a kind of a normal cubicle desk job.
Yeah. And to go back to something you mentioned, you said that your family and your now wife, they were very supportive when you told them about the change. Was that something that was important to you, or you didn't care? Whether they said yes or no, they have your back or not, you were going to do it anyway?
I think I am pretty stubborn, so it would have mattered to me if they weren't supporting me. But it also wasn't like I just decided the next day that I wasn't going to, I changed my mind and said, I'm not going to be a lawyer anymore. I'm going to flip.
Yeah.
It was a while that I was planning to not stay in law. In fact, I articled knowing I wouldn't stay in law, but I wanted to get called to the bar to kind of follow through with what I had started. So the whole process was getting me to the point of being called, but not to stay in it. And I think they knew that it wasn't going to be my long term.
Got it. And did your law degree help you in any way in your career today?
I think it has to a certain extent. It's helped me a little bit to project some more professionalism, but also even just interpreting things like zoning bylaws, reading contracts. They don't specifically train you on a lot of these things in law school. It's very theoretical. So, for example, in contracts class, I never saw a contract. They teach you about cases from the 1800s that shaped our contract law.
Yeah.
So I can't say necessarily that, it taught me the skills to review contracts, but at the same time, it helped me understand the background of certain things. So I'm dealing with a property now where I'm severing it from a church owns it. They bought the house beside it, and it's bringing back memories from my law school class about, how properties merge on title when you buy the neighboring property, but there are exceptions to it. For example, if the property is the whole of a lot in a plan of subdivision, or it's previously had consent, then there's exemptions of where it doesn't merge on title and you can still transfer it. So that kind of thing, there's some memories that help me out. And even just, understanding contracts. So when I do a contract with a seller, I understand, you need offer, acceptance, consideration for a contract to be binding. And so when I want a contract to be binding on the spot, and let's say they don't know yet who the lawyer they're going to use as to hold the deposit, I'll give them $1 on the spot. And that $1 is consideration. And it makes it a legally binding contract, because until that deposit is paid, there's been no consideration and the contract is technically not bound yet.
So you just take out a loonie or what?
I take out whatever I have. It's usually $5, $10 bill.
Yeah.
And I actually one time my whole deposit was $10, but another time I gave him a $20 bill. And then in the clauses, in the conditions in Schedule A, it said that I am to provide an additional deposit of, I don't know, $5,000 or $10,000 to their lawyer once they tell me who their lawyer is, within 2 business days after they tell me in writing who their lawyer is.
Yeah.
So that way they couldn't be looking for a lawyer and then decide, oh, I don't want to sell anymore. And you haven't given me deposit yet, so it's not binding. Well, no, I gave you $20. We have now a firm binding agreement. Technically, if I didn't give that additional deposit, I still have the right to close. I didn't breach, the contract is still binding. I breached a clause in it, a condition, but I didn't invalidate the contract. If I didn't give a deposit at all, the contract could be found not to be valid. So just basic principles like that. And don't take this as legal advice because I'm not a practicing lawyer.
Right.
But, just basic legal principles like that help me understand, how do I do this just a little bit better?
And how do you prove that you actually gave them money? Do you take a picture of them with the $20 bill or something? What do you do?
I write, on the contract in the deposit place, I would write $20 cash and then write received beside it and have them initial received.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. And okay, so your law is obviously helping you. And do you find that it has helped you become creative in some ways with real estate, or where does the creativity come from? You're flipping, you're wholesaling, you're doing things that not a lot of people do, and it does take some creativity to make deals work. Where does that come from?
Only a little bit from the legal background, because law does not teach you to be creative. It in many ways teaches you to follow a specific path. But understanding the law, if you are a creative person, can help you figure out different ways to do things while remaining on the right side of the law. I would say a lot of it came from my father. He, as a commercial real estate agent, you see a lot more creative things done or different things done in commercial contracts for purchases than residential. And so very few people bring that to the residential side. But you can put in all kinds of things in a commercial contract. You can do the same in a residential contract. Certain things like when I put, and this is different if it's listed on the MLS and it's going through a realtor, but when I put a clause that says I'm allowed to view the property, I don't say I'm allowed to view the property 2 more times before closing. I say I'm allowed to view the property from time to time with 24 hours notice before closing. So I don't limit myself.
Makes sense.
Things like that. When I put conditions in, I realized, I could put in an inspection condition, a financing condition, and whatever else other conditions I want. And then all of these conditions are going to scare away a seller. Yeah. Why don't I just put in one condition?
One due diligence?
Due diligence, or a typical one I use is partner approval. So that one of my partners will approve this purchase. And
so I even have a partner? Oh yeah, you've got many partners.
Exactly. So if I don't get one that approves it, then I have the right to back out.
Right.
And it gives me a lot of flexibility in deciding, well, this property isn't for me. I'm going to back out of the deal.
Okay. So you just touched on partners. Are you working with you're doing joint ventures, or are you talking about a different type of partnership? Although a joint venture isn't legally a partnership, but yeah.
No, but I guess you could loosely classify that as a partner.
Yeah.
So I've done some joint ventures. It could also be a lender. So a private money lender who's going to lend on the first mortgage. I would consider that person a partner. So if I can't find a private lender who wants to lend on the property, my partner didn't approve it. So I've partnered with people for the equity portion, and I've also partnered with people for the kind of the initial purchase, the debt.
With your private money lenders, do you have people that'll go 100% loan to value, or do you always have to put in some money, like 20% or whatever?
It depends how I do it. And I'm in a little bit different, let's say, better position now than when I started. When I started, I had enough money maybe to do, one deal at a time myself. So when I wanted to do more, I would bring in a private lender, usually to lend about 80% loan to value on the purchase. But then I would also bring in a partner to fund the rest of the down payment, the closing costs, and the renovations. So I wouldn't have any money in the deal. And the value I would add was bringing the deal and seeing it through completion. And of course, personal guarantees. So it's not like, I'm just going to walk from the deal or anything like that. But I was able to do a lot of deals without actually thinking of it as a no money down deal, but providing opportunities for people to get in on those deals with me. So I was doing that.
Yeah, it is a joint venture in a way.
Yeah.
Maybe not legally, but that is pretty much what you're doing.
Well, and it might even be a legal joint venture. I mean, I would call them a partner, but it's a joint venture where they're putting up the equity. So
that's true. Yeah. Okay. So before we continue on this topic, just in case people don't know what we're talking about, can you explain the major things that you do: wholesaling, and flipping?
Yes. So I think most people understand what a flip is.
Yeah.
It's basically you buy a property, usually run down, you fix it up, you make it beautiful like on HGTV, and then you sell it to a retail buyer on the MLS.
Mhm.
That's a flip. To do that in our market, it's very difficult. You'd have to buy a property at a significant discount.
Yeah.
So another option is when you are buying a property at a significant discount is to wholesale a property, which is you buy a property. So basically you put it under contract. Now you have a beneficial interest, a legal interest in that property, even though you're not on title. Instead of closing on the property and then fixing it up and selling it, you can sell your contract, your beneficial interest in this property. You can sell that to another investor. So if I buy a property that's worth $1 million, but I buy it for $500,000, I'm pretty sure there's someone out there who'd pay me $600,000 for that contract.
Yeah, for sure.
And I never have to close on it. I don't have commissions. I don't have land transfer tax, financing costs. I never close on the property. I just transfer the contract. And the third thing I do is what I call wholesaling, which is a wholesale to the retail market. And that would be similar to the wholesale where I buy the property under market. Even if it's quite run down, I basically do very little to it, maybe clean it up, throw out some junk, maybe paint it. And then I sell it to a retail buyer on the MLS. And part of the reason is a lot of the retail buyers as flippers or landlords, they're willing to pay more than I could pay as a flipper on the MLS. So I can just put that on the MLS, even if I buy a property for, that same example, it's worth $1 million as is, but I buy it for $500,000. Okay. I close on the property. I sell it on the MLS for $1 million because that's what it's worth as is. And now I have to pay closing costs, financing, realtor commissions, but I make that spread from having bought it at a discount. Mm-hmm. What you'll notice in all of these three things is the only way to make these things work is if you buy really cheap. So I like to think of myself as one of the best buyers of real estate in Ontario. And that's what I do for a living. I buy real estate. Mm-hmm. These three things I do, flipping, wholesaling, these are my exit strategies.
Yeah.
But the main thing is, can I buy it cheap enough where I can have any of these options?
Right. And just to clarify, you are not a real estate agent. You're not licensed as a realtor.
No,
right?
I'm not a real estate agent.
Exactly. All right. So if we want to get into a bit more detail, when we're talking about, let's say, a flip, or actually, let's say if you want to wholesale even, what is your goal as an investor? What are you looking for? Are you looking for a specific ROI, or is there something else, another criteria that works for you?
So my criteria isn't set in stone. I aim for 10% of the purchase price in profit. So if I'm buying a property for $400,000 and it's a relatively cosmetic reno, which I consider, new kitchen, new bathrooms, new floors, new light fixtures, kind of redo the whole house cosmetically, but not a 100-year-old house that I have to gut to the studs. So I buy it for $400,000. I want to make at least $40,000 in profit.
Okay.
Potentially with a partner, but after all debt payments, I want to make at least $40,000 in profit, 10%. Now that doesn't work. I'm buying a lot of properties that are at lower price points. If I'm buying a property for $100,000, I'm not going to try to do that for $10,000 profit. Right. So I kind of have a minimum of, let's say, $25,000 on a deal.
Okay. So 10% of the after repair
of the purchase price.
Of the purchase price.
Yes.
Okay, got it. 10%. And does that include your taxes? And by the way, are you paying a capital gains tax on that, or is it considered taxable income?
It's considered taxable income. Now I flipped through a corporation, and unlike rental income where it's passive income, it's taxed at a higher amount. I get taxed as active business income. So for 2018, active business income is 13.5%.
Oh, okay.
At the corporate level. Obviously, when I pull that out, I get taxed again, partially taxed again. So it comes out to about the same thing when you pull it out of the corporation. But when you leave it in, to only be taxed 13.5% allows you to continue recycling that money and grow it year over year without being hit too hard.
That's a pretty good rate.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And are you using one corporation for all your flips, or are you separating them just in case something happens? You don't want your assets to be at risk.
I have two corporations. The majority are done through one corporation.
And are you writing your offers in the name of a corporation and then assigning it to your other corporation before closing?
Yeah, most of my offers initially will be written under one corporation.
Yeah.
And then whether I assign it to someone else, close under my personal name, close under another corporation, close under my wife's name, all of those things, I have an assignment clause in the agreement that allows me to assign it to someone else.
Right. I've heard that in Ontario, you don't need an assignment clause to assign deals. You have the right to do that.
I completely agree with you. You legally don't need it. However, if you don't have it in, people will give you a harder time when you're doing it. Right. Even the other side's lawyer, technically they should understand that you don't need it.
Yeah.
But they say, well, you assigned it, but you have no right to assign it. They're
Yeah.
wrong, but it's just way easier and cleaner.
Yeah.
Unless someone's giving you resistance.
Yeah.
If someone's really giving you resistance over the wording, there's two different things I do. One would be don't put an assignment clause in at all, and then assign it anyways because you're allowed to,
Mhm.
as long as there's nothing saying, hey, you're not allowed assigning it.
Yep.
The other option, some people are scared of the word assignment. So I have a clause I use that says, the buyer is allowed to change the buyer's name.
Okay.
Very simple, plain English,
Mhm.
not legalese, but it's so easy for someone to understand that. And people don't have a concern over that. The difference would be my typical assignment clause relieves me of liability once I've assigned it.
Yep.
So that's sometimes what people have a problem with.
They'll scratch that out maybe or something.
Yes. So
Yeah.
sometimes I may have to take out that part that relieves me of liability
Mhm.
and then be much more careful if I'm assigning it to someone or how I'm closing on it, making sure that it's going to happen because I remain liable.
Yeah, because if you assign it to someone and they can't close, now the seller can pursue you, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And another way to protect yourself from that is get really good deals, because they can only pursue you if they realize a loss. So if I buy a property for $200,000 and I can't go through with it, this has never happened, but if I can't go through with it, I don't close, and then they go and they sell it for $300,000, they can't. I get my deposit back, and they can't come after me for anything because they got more money.
Right.
So buying a really good deal helps you from, if anything like that happens.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so if we just want to go into a bit of the details here of a wholesale deal, you find something for $200,000, and let's say you assign it to another purchaser or an investor for $250,000.
Mm-hmm.
Now that purchaser has to come up with $50,000 in addition to the deposit and down payment, whatever else is required to give to you, correct?
Yes. Now that's it will depend on the lender, but almost all of the time the lenders will only finance based on the initial purchase, so that $200,000 instead of the $250,000.
Right. Is there a way to work around that legally to ensure that in case the investor doesn't have an additional $50,000 to pay you?
You could potentially work with the seller where they would build it in and then they would pay me, but the way the deals are done, it usually wouldn't work that way.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a good deal and let's say I'm getting a good price, we could potentially, if it's a flip, I could potentially be paid on the back end when the person buying from me sells it in 3 months, 6 months. Obviously, the price needs to reflect that, but they could pay me on the back end so they don't need to come up with that cash.
How do you do that? Do you say get a piece of the equity from when it's sold, or do you maybe just say I want a fixed amount?
Oh, it's usually a fixed amount. But what I mean is if it's a fixed amount, let's say $20,000, if someone was, let's say I don't have any other buyers and they're interested at $20,000, then I could say, okay, pay me $20,000 once you sell it, assuming it's a flip that it's going to be short term, or within 6 months, pay me the $20,000. So it doesn't need to be immediately. And I usually wouldn't take a percentage. It would be, a fixed amount.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, you're usually finding really good deals, and that's why it's attractive to investors. But at this point, I can understand maybe in the past why you would assign these deals, but why wouldn't you just close on all of these deals yourself and then just sell them for a profit?
That's a good question. Part of it is the volume of deals I'm doing. Like I said, I'm at 20 or 21 so far this year.
Yeah.
I can't handle that many renovations. In fact, I have too many renovations going on right now. It takes a lot of time, and I do want to grow. I have plans to expand into a lot more volume. The other thing too is some of the properties I'm buying, for example, may not work as a great flip. So if I can't get good financing on a rental, let's say I find a great fourplex. Now it's $400,000 and it's worth $450,000. I may not be able to close on that, renovate the units, and resell it at enough of a spread. There may not be enough spread there, but I could ask $420,000, and someone who's looking for a fourplex, now these are rare, but someone who's looking for a fourplex would love to get a $450,000 fourplex for $420,000.
Yeah.
Whereas for me to flip that, I might need to be buying it at $380,000. So there's certain situations where I know, there's a good pool of people who want rentals in this area, and a $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 discount would be appealing to them. Then that property would be better to wholesale to a landlord buyer, and they'll be happy renting it out, but they're getting better financing and they're holding it for the long term, whereas I'm just kind of finding the deal.
Right. I guess it depends on the deal, or it depends on what the investor plans on doing. If they're going to flip, or maybe if they're doing a buy and hold, that might change the results.
Absolutely. And also the distance. So I may not want to take on large projects in, Windsor, Sarnia, Ottawa.
How are you finding deals out there?
Oh, I haven't done any in Windsor, Sarnia. I've done I'm working on my second one in St. Thomas.
Mhm.
I've done one in London, several in Brantford. I did one in Westport, Ontario, which is 40 minutes north of Kingston.
Mhm.
So certain ones are targeted mailings, certain ones are online. The one in Westport was actually through another wholesaler who found it and, kind of said, who's crazy enough to buy out in this small town? I said, hey, if the price is right, I'll buy anywhere.
Yeah.
So I am looking everywhere.
Got it. All right. 2 questions for you. Who are your wholesale clients, wholesalees? And also, where are you finding your deals?
So my clients, I guess the buyers for me, I have a mix on my buyers list. And it's good because certain people will be looking for specific things in specific markets, and certain ones will be looking everywhere. So for flip deals, I find if it's a good enough price to flip, there's a lot of people who want a good flip property.
How are you finding them, these people, by the way?
A mix of things through meetups, through introductions, and also I was doing some Facebook ads for a while, basically saying, hey, join my buyers list if you're looking for discounted properties. A lot of people were like, oh, you're a scam. Why would anyone sell a property at a discount? But I mean, it was kind of amusing to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've grown my buyers list through that. Now, because of the Facebook marketing, I don't really know a lot of the buyers on my list. There's some
but it was effective for you, the Facebook marketing? Or has there been something that's more effective, like let's say networking at some of these small groups that you're a part of?
Yeah, I might have, I'm trying to think, maybe 300 people on my list. I'm trying to think of how many people, probably something like that. I probably have 5 or 10 really serious buyers that if I have a great deal, they'll buy it always. So, and then, within the rest of those, there's a mix of people who will buy in the right market, with the right numbers, the right type of property. So people who have specific, let's say, I buy duplexes that can be converted to triplexes in Kitchener.
Yeah.
And that's all they're looking for. If I happen to find one, perfect person to do it. Those are rare.
Yeah.
So most likely they're not going to get what they want from my buyer's list, but there's a chance. And if that comes up, they're going to get the right property for them. So overall, I would say it has worked finding people, but really getting to know the people who are doing this in volume are the best ones to wholesale to. And sometimes they have short timelines, the wholesale deals I get. So to be able to call someone I know is serious, I know is looking for another deal right now and say, hey, I've got this property, closing's in 2 weeks. I need a decision by tomorrow. Can you, are you interested based on these numbers? That goes a long way. Yeah.
And the second part of the question, how are you finding your deals, your house deals?
Yes. So I didn't mention, I'm growing this as a business. So I have a team. I have an acquisitions manager and kind of an admin/transaction coordinator on my team now. And so I do a lot of outbound marketing, and that's flyers, letters, targeted, mail campaigns, as well as broad mail campaigns, AdWords, Google, Kijiji, Bing, everything, just kind of broad marketing. And what happens is I then have sellers calling my acquisitions manager. So he gets the calls directly from the sellers and then, determines how motivated they are, determines, if they're willing to take the right price. And if it's worth it, he'll go and see the properties and negotiate with them and then make an offer. So my role would be to review once he gets to the point where he's making an offer to make sure that his assumptions are correct on the exit price, review comparables and things like that, and the renovation budget, and then to sign the offers. So a lot of outbound marketing brings in a decent amount of calls, and we probably buy 1 or 2 houses for every 100 phone calls we get.
Yeah. And you said you were getting 100 every how often?
Probably getting a little over 100 a month, I would say.
100 a month.
We're buying 2 or 3 houses a month at the moment.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So you're doing all of this stuff. You said it's very broad. There's print marketing, there's online ads, all sorts of stuff. Have you done any studies to see what has been the most effective source of, I guess, lead generation for you?
The best ones are my long-term SEO. Basically, my websites, the longer they've been up, the better I have organic results.
Right.
Not the paid ones. The paid ones are good too, but probably I would say the best bang for your buck is when you have a website with the right keyword search, the right search engine optimization. With time, you have people who organically find your website, and those actually end up being usually my best deals.
So these are just people who own a house. Let's say maybe it's distressed, and they're just Googling house buyer or something, and they end up on your website?
Yeah, I have 2 websites for house sellers. I buy houses toronto.ca
okay,
and cashhousebuyer.ca. And I kind of use them in different marketing because the I buy houses. Toronto.ca is more focused on the immediate GTA. Cash house buyers focused a little more broadly since it doesn't have Toronto in the name. But yeah, so people might Google, sell my house fast, sell my house without a realtor, fast cash for my house. They might see a bandit sign on the street, the sign that says we buy houses. So they might Google we buy houses. Then they might find my website. Even that bandit sign might not be mine. They didn't catch the phone number. They caught we buy houses. So instead of searching who will buy my house, they're searching we buy houses to find those companies that do that. And that they would find my website from that.
And obviously you've got a lot of marketing in Toronto, it sounds like. Are most of your deals in Toronto, the ones that you're wholesaling and flipping and all that?
No, most of my deals are at the moment a lot on the west side. So I've got some heavy marketing, mail marketing in Brantford. So I'm doing well there just because of the heavy marketing. We're getting a decent amount of leads from that. In the past little while, I just came from seeing one this morning in St. Catharines that I'd bought, that my acquisition manager had bought over the weekend, I believe. So I saw that. We bought one in Hamilton, closing soon in November. Just closed on one that I'm keeping as a rental in Brantford. I have another one I'm dealing with purchased in Brantford. That was the church house with the severance. I'm closing on 2 this week in Toronto. So one in Etobicoke, one in downtown. So the thing is about the Toronto ones, I find it very, very difficult to get deals done in Toronto because the high price point, my expensive financing, the double land transfer tax, even realtor commissions on the sale, it's going to be a large amount of money because it's such a high price point. The difference is when I do occasionally find deals in Toronto, the potential profit is much larger. So, the one in Etobicoke, I think I'm hoping to make $150,000 on that flip.
Wow, that's awesome.
Whereas I got an amazing deal in St. Catharines, the one I saw this morning. I bought a really, really rundown house with holes chewed through the walls from rats for $106,500.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
It's probably worth $160 as is. And if I close on it and clean it up a little, I might make $40,000, which is great on this price point of property. But it doesn't compare to $150,000 in Toronto.
Right.
So the lower price points, I do like the lower price points anyways, because it feels so much less risky.
Right.
And there's always people who want to buy at the starter home price points. My most expensive flip I'm doing right now, I hope to sell it for a little over 1.5 million. And that one has me a lot more stressed because a 10% fluctuation in prices in the Roncesvalles area, that will really hurt.
Yeah, it's going to impact your ROI quite a bit.
Yes.
Yeah. 1.5 million, is that in Toronto?
Yes.
It's a single family home?
It's a semi-detached.
Wow.
Yes.
1.5 semi. And that's so that you're expecting that's what you're going to sell it for. And that's not what you bought it for.
No, I bought it for 1.1, but it was actually a joint venture because the max I was willing to pay for it was $1,050,000. And the seller is a builder who builds, larger mid-sized projects and mid-sized condos and rental apartments. So this was kind of a side thing he was doing for keep cash flow going because the projects he does take so long, and then decided he didn't want to really finish it. So he had already made money. He got a good buy. So what I said to him, relatively sophisticated guy, I said, if he wasn't willing to go under 1.1, I say, okay, I'll pay 1.1, but you stay on title. And that way I'll pay your financing costs, which was a great bank loan, 2.95% or something like that. I don't pay land transfer tax. I saved $35,000 on land transfer tax. So between those two already, I've saved money. So we basically did a joint venture agreement. He's getting 1.1 million when I sell it to the end buyer. Okay. But he's staying on title and saving me all of those transfer costs and all of that.
And you're doing some work to the house, or you're just leaving it as is?
It's probably a $200,000 reno.
Really?
Yes, it's a century home, gutted to the studs. Everything needs to be done.
And how does insurance work for that purpose? Is he's the one who gets the insurance?
He has kept his insurance on it, and I'm making the payment. So he has a builder's risk policy on it. Okay.
So you're paying that now? You're basically paying everything
I'm
right
paying
now.
Everything on it.
Yeah.
Like he had sold it to me, except he doesn't get really the profit or the capital back other than a deposit that I had released to him. He doesn't get that until we sell to the end buyer.
That's a smart idea. Where did you come up with that strategy?
I've done it. I think this is the third one I've done. It's similar to the concept of agreement for sale, but which I've never done and I don't fully understand. I've just heard of it being done in Ontario. The first one, I'm trying to think. I don't know where I came up with that idea. I wonder if it was suggested by my father. The first one I did was with one of my good friends who was moving out of the country, and he wanted a certain price, but after realtor commissions, I could subtract the realtor commissions if he would hang on to it and pay that price without him having to, prep it for sale. So we agreed. He held it, sold it to the end buyer for me after I renovated it. And I did quite well on it, in part because the market was going up at the time. And he was happy with the sale. So worked out for everyone. And I trusted him. So it was a great first deal to do like that. This one with the builder, I know he's a sophisticated guy with a reputation. At the same time, we have a joint venture agreement to kind of protect both parties. So it is a risky, even though you might have an agreement to protect you, it's still a risky proposition with the seller that you don't trust or know very well. Because they are on title, right? You run what if they sell it to someone behind your back? Yes, you can sue them. You can, but it's just more complicated and risky. So you really want to feel that the person you're dealing with is an honest person. Even if you might legally be in the right, it can still be complicated and frustrating if you can't trust the person.
Yeah, definitely don't want anything going to court if possible.
No, for sure.
What's your idea of financial freedom? What does that mean to you?
So the vision I have in my head and that I'm working towards always is my wife and I moving to the Canary Islands and spending the winters there. I'm still young. We're still young. We don't have kids yet. Probably in the next few years, we will have children. So things will change when we have children. But I'd like to be starting to spend parts of my winters and then all of my winters in the Canary Islands within a few years. And financial freedom to me, and I think to most, is not needing to work, choosing to work by choice, but not needing to. And the rental properties that I've got a portfolio building up of cash flowing rental properties, that kind of helps with that, where I can live off of that income and be comfortable. At the same time, my wife has a great job, so she won't be leaving that unless we have a very, stable portfolio that is very safe and we know it's going to be protecting us long term. At the same time, things are changing a little because I'm trying to build a business here that will continue running even if I'm not around. So basically, my version of financial freedom may not be completely early retirement, but it's spending an hour a day on checking my emails from the Canary Islands in the winter and keeping a business running with a business manager here in Toronto and being able to live comfortably off of that and continue adding to my portfolio.
Cool. Sounds pretty good.
Well, I hope so. I mean, it's I need to put it out there. I got to put my goals out there, my dreams out there, because if I don't put it out there, it's easy not to, be committed to it.
And how far are you from hiring a business manager and having the business essentially run itself?
I mean, I could do it at any time, but I'd be giving up a good amount of the profit. So it's really something I would want to do. Maybe the business manager would be someone from within my company as I grow. I do have plans to grow and hire a few more people within the next year. So I want to grow the company to a certain size that it can more justify having a full-time manager of it, and that I can kind of just guide it from above the manager, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And throughout the process of finding a good deal, you come across all these different properties. How do you decide which ones you want to wholesale, flip, or keep?
Yeah, I'm having that debate right now. The one in St. Catharines I was just talking about, I could wholesale. In fact, I bought it for $106,500. I have someone offering me, $10,000 wholesale fee. So let's say $116,500. So I know I could just sign that today and someone would give me $10,000. That's great. But I also have to look at the numbers of, does it make sense to put a little bit of more work into it or close on it and resell? I think there's enough spread there and the price point is low enough, it's easy to find the money, that it's worth closing on and at least wholetailing. So close on it, empty out the junk, kill the rats and put it on the market. But I also look at, can I get a little bit more than that? Is it worth doing a little more work to get more than that? So if I can sell it for, let's say, 160 doing nothing, and I can spend 10 grand and sell it for 180, that might be worth it. But I'll also look at how far is it? So how easy is it for me to find a contractor that I can count on and not have to drive really long distances to monitor a $10,000 renovation? So all of these things I take into account. For example, if it was a Century home not close to me, that I have to gut to the studs, do all new, electrical because there's knob and tube, new plumbing because there's galvanized plumbing, and remove all the lath and plaster. That's a huge renovation project, which would take a ton of my time to manage. So if I was going to do that, I'd have to make way more profit than if I could just wholesale it to someone who would take that on.
Right.
And I would make, if I made $20,000 less by wholetailing it, I would be, very, very happy to do that.
Yeah. You only have so much time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. When you're buying these properties, are you most of the time using private money, or are you qualifying yourself, or how are you structuring it, the financing?
So if you tell a bank that you're flipping a property, they won't lend on it. They don't. No banks, as far as I know, no banks or alternative lenders lend on flips. And if anyone in your audience knows of an alternative lender who would consider lending on flips, I'd be happy to. I mean, I have the business income, I have excellent credit, but they won't touch these properties.
Right.
So my solution is either partner with people or borrow the money through private mortgages, which is often through mortgage investment companies as well, through a broker. So sometimes it's individuals who do the private, sometimes it's through the brokers. And so the more expensive properties pretty much always need to get, an 80% loan to value first mortgage through a private lender or a MIC. And
what's a MIC?
A mortgage investment company. So it's basically a pool of people's money, and then they lend it out on private mortgages.
Okay.
And I believe the people who lend the money to the company get the interest rate that you're paying, and then the MIC, like the people who run the MIC, get the fees that they charge, and the fees can be substantial. So they like charging me fees because I turn over the money quickly, and they make a lot on the fees. It's great for them, not for me.
Yeah.
So that, and then I also partner with some people for these lower price point properties. Again, I keep coming back to this one in St. Catharines, but I've got one coming up in Hamilton that I bought for $130,000, the one in Brantford for $140,000. I can either easily find private individuals who have, $140,000 to put down on a property or to buy a property with, and they can either lend on it or potentially partner on it, depending on how the deal works. So those lower price point properties are really much easier to find people with money to lend on. If I'm buying an $800,000 property, I'm not going to find someone to put down $800,000.
Yeah.
I guess it's possible, but I don't have anyone like that in my network who's willing to lend on those properties.
So what do? You go to your MIC, I guess?
I go to the MIC or through a broker might find some high net worth individuals who will lend on those. Again, get charged fees through the broker.
Yeah.
And then I still need to come up with the down payment and reno cost, which maybe from my own funds, maybe partnering with someone, or maybe otherwise outside borrowing, not secured. Unlike traditional banks who say you can't borrow the down payment, the private lenders don't really care where the down payment comes from. They have the security in the property and their high rates. So, I could say, George, hey, I'll pay you 10%, lend me $100,000 for the down payment on this property. And so I can do that as well. And that, assuming you'd be willing to do that unsecured, because I can't register another second after them, not to mention the costs of registering the second. So you could lend me that $100,000. I use that as my down payment. I pay you back with interest, and I pay back the MIC with interest at the sale.
Okay. So you end up not putting any of your own money in the deal?
Sometimes. I don't necessarily set out trying to do deals with none of my own money. It just kind of makes sense depending on where my money is at the time, how many deals I have it tied up in, and the availability of other investors who want to lend on my deals.
Yeah. Okay. So just to recap, you would get a private first, and then you would get an unsecured loan to cover the down payment for that private first.
Yes.
Would it be through the MIC that you would get that money?
No. So that might be, the MICs won't do the unsecured loans because they're securing it against real estate always. Hence the name mortgage investment company that secure it against the property. No. So that would be from private individuals. And again, we're talking about, not $800,000 because we're just talking about the down payment portion. So $100,000.
Yeah. Still a big chunk.
Yeah. And I've done many deals with none of my own money where and either a lender or a partner will put in the down payment, put in the renovations and the closing costs. And I've done many deals with my own money. So kind of a mix.
Okay, cool. That's pretty interesting. I've never thought about doing it that way. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I wanted to ask you a specific question while you were talking, but I actually forgot what it was now.
That's what happens. I talk a lot, so I must have kept going after you forgot your question.
No, that's okay. Okay, so what do you see as the future for yourself? What direction is your business going in? Are you going to continue doing what you're doing, or are you going to shift over to maybe a different strategy or something else?
As I mentioned, I see myself as a house buyer, and that's my strength. That's what I'm best at. That's what I want to keep doing. And I've got certain strategies and systems and processes that work for me, and I think I can grow doing that. As I mentioned, a lot of people who are really good at this business, they go, well, I'm really good at this. Let me go develop a townhouse complex, right? Or, get land rezoned. Or they get into more complicated different deals, but very few people do the volume that I'm doing. And I want to grow. I actually have a goal to do 50 houses next year. So that is where I see myself going. I see myself expanding further and further from the GTA, increasing my marketing and having more people on my acquisitions team to go and meet with the sellers. So,
how many deals did you do last year just to see the growth?
Last year I did either 17 or 18.
17 or 18, you already surpassed that.
So yes, I did. So 2016, I did 2.
Really?
And then 2017, I did 17 or 18. And this year I'm at 20 or 21. And so if I'll hit, I don't know how it'll be until the end of the year. Maybe I'll hit 25.
Did you have another job in 2016?
I did. Yes. Okay. So 2016, March 2016 was my first flip. And that was during my articling. And I got called to the bar in September of 2016.
Okay.
So it was really only October 2016 I started doing real estate.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Full time at least.
Oh, yeah. Great. Okay. So you envision growth spreading out a bit further, doing more deals, doing 50. So even double what you're doing now.
Yes.
And do you have a plan in place to do that?
Yes. The main thing is I need to grow my team. So I have a general idea of what marketing works for me. And I have kind of a plan on expanding the marketing, because in part of the geographic expansion is that certain marketing gets saturated when you do too much of it. You can do kijiji ads, but only so many people will look at kijiji, and you kind of saturate that market. But if you expand into a new market, you can do the same things and grow that. So, but the main thing is hiring people, because my acquisitions manager is maxed out on the volume of calls he can take. So I can't increase my marketing too much. Well, I can't, at the moment my marketing is maxed out for what he can handle.
Right.
I would hire someone today to, work with my acquisitions manager, who's great and doing a good job. I would hire someone today, except that I know there's a slowdown through the winter. We're recording this in October. I'm expecting a bit of a slowdown it's harder to buy through the winter. Fewer people are looking to sell. So I don't want to hire someone now and then have a reduced number of calls for multiple people. My plan is to hire another person in the spring. Ramp up my marketing in the springtime when more people are looking to sell. Typically how I've seen in my business, more people are calling in the springtime. So I'll be able to ramp up my marketing and have more than one person taking those phone calls. Yeah,
but the thing is, from what I know, when the spring hits and it's busy, you're not going to have time to hire someone.
Yes.
So it's probably better for you to start preparing for that maybe 1 or 2 months before, even though it might be a little bit slower, but at least you know that you've got some free time at that point.
Absolutely. I was thinking of starting to look for someone in January to maybe start in February.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're probably going to get swamped. If you're doing 50 deals next year, your spring's going to be swamped.
Well, I don't think I can do 50 deals with my team the way it is. It's a matter of hiring more people to be able to handle that volume.
Yeah. When is the busiest time for you? Busiest time of the year?
It's funny because you see the market pick up in the spring, but my volume doesn't pick up immediately when that volume does. I start getting more calls, but it kind of takes some time to fill the pipeline and talk to those people who are interested in selling. So I would say late spring to the beginning of summer, up to, right now I'm extremely busy still in October.
Yeah.
So we'll see if sellers stop contacting us. I'm not sure when it'll be, but I'd say late spring to November, December will probably be my busiest time.
It's really cool that you're getting 100 calls a month. It's really hard to be able to do that, because I've done a bit of stuff like just listed postcards or just sold and tried the real estate stuff, but I don't really get much of a response through print. And I know you have to constantly put your name out there and people have to see it all the time. Do you find that because you're always putting new content with the same sort of marketing that you're getting a response, or is it you can just go into a brand new market and you're still going to get a good response?
Hitting them repeatedly does help. Yeah. So it makes them think about it the first time you hit them again, you remind them. But there's also a difference in what I do. In realtors have kind of saturated the market. People are so used to seeing realtor postcards that unless they're really thinking of selling right then and they don't have a realtor, otherwise they're just your postcards going in the recycle bin.
Exactly.
Whereas mine is a little bit different, and so people aren't used to seeing it. So it helps that way. But you have to realize too, the 100 phone calls, we have lots of people who say, "Oh, my property's listed right now and it hasn't been selling.
Oh yeah.
Do you want to pay me? I'll lower my price by $5,000 off of the asking price. Will you buy it?" Well, no. That's not, if you can't sell it for what you're asking on the MLS within $5,000, there's no way that's going to work for me.
I guess it's worth a shot for them, but not a very good strategy.
Exactly. You can kind of see that they're, getting ready to sell, but it makes it so much harder once they already have a realtor.
Yeah.
So they already have to pay commissions on the sale. So they're not saving that. It's one of the value proposition with me is they don't need to pay realtor commissions. They save that. They don't need to clean it up. Like the one in St. Catharines, they can leave the furniture they don't want. They're just going to leave the junk behind and we'll take care of it.
Right. But that's going to be pretty expensive, won't it? To get a dumpster and then it depends on the purchase price. Obviously, you're getting it for 106, so it's not bad. But
it absolutely reflects the purchase price.
Yeah,
So I could probably call 1-800-GOT-JUNK and spend $1,200 to throw out their furniture. It's not going to be a huge amount of money compared to the savings on a property.
That's true. You're taking it off the top. They're paying for it basically by leaving all their crap in there instead of cleaning it out. Because all they have to do really is just clean it out, put it on the market. It'll sell. Even if they put it on the market as is, it would probably sell for significantly more.
Yeah, and some people, don't necessarily believe they can sell a house, with a rat problem.
Right.
But flippers on the MLS will probably pay too much for it. So.
Yeah. Have you ever seen rats in properties?
No, this is probably the first one I've run into with rats, which is why and I just came from it before this morning.
Oh, yeah?
So, yeah, I saw it this morning.
Really?
I didn't see any rats there, but there's literally holes in the walls where they chewed through.
Yeah.
Mice are common, to have mouse droppings. That's common. Run into cockroaches and things like that. I haven't been in any flea infestations, any bed bug infestations.
You don't know.
that I know of.
You got to check your clothes.
Yeah. Well, I try to be, if I come through from a really gross house, I try to be careful. And
you got to pat yourself down. You got to, before you get in the car, pat yourself down.
If I brought fleas or bed bugs home, my wife,
man,
she
that's
might
the
leave
worst.
me.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember I went into an apartment building in Hamilton a few months ago.
Yeah.
And they were showing me around. They opened one of the doors and I look and I just see mice running around right in the middle of the spot. They're not even hiding.
Yeah.
They're just right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that can be taken care of for not too much money. It just,
the whole apartment building was infested, right?
Yeah.
With the mice. So
it helps a lot when it's empty, when you're doing renovations.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, great. Let's go into the random 5.
Okay.
I'm just going to ask you 5 questions and then you can just right off the top of your head, tell me what comes to mind first.
Okay.
We'll start with an easy one. What's your favorite cereal?
I'm going to say Captain Crunch.
Captain Crunch. I haven't had Captain Crunch in a while.
I know, right? But it's good.
What's the flavor like again?
It's the little, it's the French toast crunch. So it's shaped like little French toast crunch or French toast covered in honey.
No, but isn't that French toast crunch?
Captain Crunch.
I think Captain Crunch is different.
No, they're little toast ones.
They are?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
I used to have that all the time. Yeah.
I think. I don't eat cereal often. We have Cheerios at home, but that's for my wife. So Fruit Loops are good too. I like the kind of sweet.
Yeah, the sweet sugary stuff. Yeah. Okay, what about your favorite movie?
Maybe Avatar. I really enjoyed that. Saw it in the theaters and I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Okay. What would you prefer, Power Rangers or Powerpuff Girls?
I guess Power Rangers.
Why do you say that?
I can't say I watched much of either one, but
because you're a guy.
Yeah, I guess since I'm a guy, Power Rangers is more action. I guess they're both action oriented. One is more feminine, so yeah.
I used to watch the Powerpuff Girls. I thought it was cool. I used to watch both, but yeah. All right. What was your favorite band or artist when you were younger?
Oh man, the first tape I ever had back on cassette tapes was I'm trying to think, was it Spice Girls? I think it was Spice Girls.
Me too. I had a CD though, not a tape.
Oh, I had it.
But it was the first one.
That was when they were selling them both on CDs and tapes.
Yeah.
Like you could get either one, and I had a tape player at home. So
that's so funny.
Yeah. My favorite band, I guess it might have been Green Day back in the day. Yeah.
Spice Girls to Green Day.
Yeah.
Quite different. Yeah. But yeah, I think everyone, when you're young, you just start off with Spice Girls.
Yeah.
And then you branch out.
It was huge when we were growing up.
Yeah, that's
I think
true.
we're around the same age. So I think.
I don't know. How old are you?
I'm 29.
Oh, I'm 28.
Perfect.
Yeah, we are almost the same age.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. And you already answered this question. It was one of mine, which was, where would you like to retire? But maybe we'll shift it. Where will you go next as your vacation?
Well, probably back to the Canary Islands.
Other than that.
Yeah. I just came back from the Cook Islands. We got a cheap flight deal, and it's the middle of nowhere in the South Pacific, so that was beautiful. Just came back in September. Oh, and I'm going to San Diego tomorrow.
Oh,
it's
cool.
Not really a conference. I'm going for a flipping conference.
Really?
Yeah, there's one every year called Flip Hacking Live. I've never been, but I'm expecting great things. And I have a brother and my brother and his family live in Los Angeles in Orange County, so they're only about an hour and a half from San Diego.
Well, you think that until you hit traffic.
Yes, but I'm going to see them. So today's Tuesday that we're recording this. I'm leaving tomorrow morning, Wednesday, and the conference runs until Saturday. So Sunday they're coming down to San Diego, and we're going to go probably to the zoo or something like that. So I guess it's a mini vacation, get to see my, cute little niece and nephew.
Yeah. Is it your first time in San Diego?
No, because my brother lives there. I've been a few times. Actually, Cook Islands, the flight to Rarotonga and Cook Islands flies through LA. So back in September, I was in Los Angeles and we went down to the San Diego SeaWorld. So I was there pretty recently, actually.
Yeah, you said he's got kids, right? So
Yes.
they probably like doing SeaWorld and stuff like
They
that.
have seasons passes to SeaWorld.
Oh, yeah.
So they go
cool.
often.
Yeah, cool. Well, have a safe flight. That's it. Was there anything you want to add? And do you want to tell people how they could contact you?
Yep. If you want to contact me, probably email's the best way. So my name, it's LUCB, Luc B, at cashhousebuyer.ca. So the buyer of houses for cash, cashhousebuyer.ca.
Yep.
Email me, reach out to me like that. That's probably the best way. And you can also find me on Facebook, Luc Boiron, LUC, Boiron. And I'm on Bigger Pockets and Instagram at French Luc.
You're on Bigger Pockets, the podcast?
No, I'm on Bigger Pockets, the forum. So you can find me if you search in the forums.
Got it.
Okay. But actually, I don't check that often. So email's the best way.
Email, yeah.
Yeah. Add me on Facebook or Instagram as well.
Yeah, I've never listened to Bigger Pockets, but I've heard people talk about it. All right. And just to be clear, I guess if people have a distressed home or something, they can contact you and you would help them get through to the next step.
Absolutely. I'm always looking to buy more houses, even if they have a lead for it. And actually, we have the first referral that we're going to be paying someone on for having brought us, a seller who's potentially interested in selling. So I'm always looking for more properties. And if someone has a deal that they want to partner on, if they're not sure how to do it, but they got a great opportunity, I'm happy to do that as well.
Cool. Sounds good. Well, thank you for your time, Luc.
Thank you, George.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Well Off Podcast. If you enjoy the content, then I would appreciate it if you shared it with your family and friends and anyone you know who may benefit. Until next time, I'm George Almasri. Enjoy the rest of your day.